Commander Park Min-ho stood at the window of his ship and watched the massive space station grow larger. Nexus Prime was the biggest thing he had ever seen. The station was so huge that it had its own weather patterns. Clouds moved around its metal surface like a small planet. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Dr. Kim Hana as she joined him at the window. She was Earth's best expert on alien cultures. For 20 years she had studied every piece of information about the galaxy that Earth could find. "It's impressive," Min-ho said, "but I've seen bigger things on Earth. Our cities, our mountains, our oceans. This is just metal and technology." Hana smiled. "That's a very human way to think about it. The aliens who built this see it differently. To them, this represents the power of working together across the galaxy." Their ship, the Soul's Pride, moved slowly toward the docking bay. It was a good ship, built with the best technology Earth had, but compared to the alien ships around them, it looked simple and plain. The alien ships had smooth curves and strange colors that seemed to change in the light. Earth's ship was gray metal with straight lines and sharp edges. "Are you nervous?" Hana asked. Min-ho thought about it. "No. We came here to ask for something that should be easy to give. We want to join the galactic community. We want to trade, to learn, to share what we know. If they say no to that, then we'll know what kind of people they really are." The docking process took 3 hours. Everything had to be checked and approved by multiple alien security teams. They scanned the ship, the crew, and every piece of equipment. Minho found it strange that they were so careful with visitors who came asking to be friends. When they finally left their ship, Minho got his first look at real aliens. The docking bay was full of different species. Some looked like giant insects with too many arms. Others looked like walking plants with leaves instead of hair. A few looked almost human but had skin that sparkled like jewels. None of them looked at the human team. They walked past as if the humans were not there at all. "Interesting," Hana whispered. "They're not curious about us. Most intelligent species would want to look at newcomers." A tall alien with blue skin and 4 eyes approached them. "I am Coordinator Nixon. You will follow me to the council chamber. Do not speak to anyone else. Do not touch anything. Do not ask questions." The walk through the station took an hour. The hallways were enormous, built for species much larger than humans. Everything was clean and shiny, but it felt cold. There were no decorations, no art, no signs of individual personality anywhere. The council chamber was the size of a football stadium. 47 different alien species sat in a giant circle around a center platform. Each species had its own section with seats designed for their body type. The humans were led to a small platform in the very center. Min-ho looked around at the assembled aliens. Some were huge, as big as elephants. Others were tiny, no bigger than children. But all of them were staring down at the human team with the same expression. It was not anger or fear. It was something worse. It was the way someone looks at an insect they are about to step on. "Beings of the Galactic Council," Min-ho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "I am Commander Park Min-ho, representing the people of Earth. We come before you in peace, seeking membership in your community of worlds." He had practiced this speech many times. He spoke about Earth's achievements in science and technology. He talked about human art, music, and literature. He explained how humans had learned to work together despite their differences. He described the things Earth could offer to the galaxy: new ideas, new perspectives, and the willingness to help others. When he finished, the chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Chancellor Vextai of the Dominion Empire stood up. He was a large creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. His voice was deep and harsh. "We have studied your species for many years," he said. "We know what you are. You are violent. Your history is nothing but war after war. You destroy your own planet for profit. You cannot even make peace among your own kind. Why should we trust you with the galaxy?" High Arbiter Quendara of the Celestial Federation was next. She looked like a tall, thin tree with silver bark and glowing eyes. "Your species is too primitive," she said. "You still use violence to solve problems. You still have poverty and hunger on your world. You are not ready to join civilized society." One by one, the other species spoke. Each gave reasons why humans should not be allowed to join. They called humans dangerous, primitive, chaotic, and unpredictable. They said Earth was too young, too violent, too different. Min-ho listened to all of it without speaking. Dr. Hana stood beside him, taking notes on every word. Her face showed no emotion, but Min-ho could see her hands shaking slightly. Finally, the vote was called. It was simple and quick. Each species leader pressed a button, green for yes, red for no. The results appeared on a giant screen above the chamber, 47 red lights, 0 green lights, but that was not the end. High Arbiter Quendara stood again. The Council has decided that Earth represents a threat to galactic peace and stability. Therefore, we invoke the Isolation Decree. Earth will have no contact with any galactic civilization. No trade, no communication, no technology transfer. Any species that helps Earth in any way will face severe punishment. Furthermore, added Chancellor Vextai, if Earth attempts to expand beyond its own solar system, we will consider it an act of aggression. The galaxy will be protected from human influence. Minho felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was not just rejection. This was a declaration that humanity was the enemy of every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Do we have the right to respond to these charges? Minho asked. You have no rights here, Quendara said. You are not members of this council. You never will be. Return to your world and stay there. The human team was escorted back to their ship under guard. Nobody spoke to them. Nobody looked at them. They might as well have been criminals being thrown out of the station. As the Soul's Pride left Nexus Prime, Minho sat in his command chair and thought about what had just happened. The aliens had not just said no to Earth's request. They had made it clear that they saw humans as something dangerous that needed to be contained. Sir, called Communications Officer Yang Sung-ho, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between the Council ships. They don't think we can understand their codes. Can we? Minho asked. Yes, sir. Dr. Hana's cultural studies included their military communication systems. Yang's face was pale as he listened to his equipment. Sir, they're discussing something called Operation Cleansing. It's scheduled to begin in 1 Earth year. Minho closed his eyes. The Council had not just rejected Earth. They had declared war on humanity. And they thought humans would just sit on their planet and wait to die. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The emergency meeting took place in Geneva, deep underground in the United Earth Defense Council's war room. Admiral Lee Jiho looked around the table at the faces of Earth's military and scientific leaders. None of them looked surprised by the news from Nexus Prime. So they rejected us, said General An Taeyong, commander of Earth's ground forces, and now they plan to attack us in 1 year. That's correct, said Commander Park Minho, who had returned from the council just hours ago. They call it Operation Cleansing. They see us as a threat that must be eliminated. Dr. Kim Hana spread out her notes on the table. I've been studying their behavior during the meeting. Every single species that voted against us shares certain characteristics. They all evolved from prey animals or hive creatures. None of them understand what it means to be a predator. Professor Choi Min-jae, Earth's top weapons researcher, leaned forward. That's actually good news for us. We've been preparing for this possibility for years. Admiral Lee stood up and walked to a wall screen. With a few touches, he brought up a star map showing Earth's solar system. Project Prometheus has been running in secret for 5 years. We hoped we would never need it, but we're ready. The screen changed to show technical drawings of weapons and ships. While our diplomats were preparing for peace, our engineers were preparing for war. The aliens think we're primitive because we use kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. They don't understand that sometimes the simple solution is the best solution. Captain Yoon Jisoo of the Terra Marine Corps smiled grimly. I've been testing our new combat suits against alien weapon simulations. Their energy weapons are designed to fight other energy weapons. They don't know how to deal with good old-fashioned bullets and explosives. Engineer Yang Sung-ho, recently promoted after his work decoding alien communications, brought up another display. We've been studying their ship designs from the data we collected at Nexus Prime. They're built for comfort and efficiency, not for fighting. Their hulls are thin. Their engines are exposed. They assume that battles will be fought at long range with energy weapons. What about their numbers? Asked Dr. Shin Hosung, Earth's chief military psychologist. They have 47 different species. We're just one world. Dr. Hana looked up from her notes. That's their weakness, not their strength. Each species thinks differently. They can barely agree on simple things, let alone complex military strategy. In the council chamber, I watched them argue about the temperature of the room for 10 minutes. Also, added Intelligence Officer Nam Soo-jin, not all of those species are loyal to the Council. I've been in contact with rebel groups on several worlds. They're afraid of the Council, but they hate it too. If someone showed them that the Council could be beaten, some of them might switch sides. Admiral Lee nodded. That's part of our strategy. We're not trying to conquer the galaxy. We're trying to free it from a corrupt government that rules through fear. The meeting continued for 6 hours. Plans were made and resources assigned. Earth's factories would be converted to military production. Training programs would be expanded. New weapons would be built and tested. But the most important part of the plan was psychological. The aliens think they know what humans are, Dr. Shen explained to the group. They see our history of wars and they think we're mindlessly violent. They don't understand the difference between being able to fight and wanting to fight. They also don't understand human creativity and warfare, added Captain Yoon. Every other species fights the same way their ancestors did. Humans adapt. We change our tactics based on what works. We learn from our mistakes and our enemies' mistakes. Professor Choi brought up examples on the screen. Look at human military history. We started with sticks and stones. Then we invented bows, then guns, then missiles, then spacecraft. Each time we took old ideas and made them better. The aliens have been using the same weapon designs for thousands of years. There's something else, said Nam Sujin quietly. My contacts in the rebel groups tell me that most alien species have never fought a war where they were outnumbered. They always attack weaker enemies with overwhelming force. They don't know how to fight when they can't guarantee victory. The planning session revealed many advantages that Earth had not realized it possessed. Human ships were smaller but faster. Human weapons were simpler but more reliable. Human soldiers could survive in conditions that would kill most aliens. Most importantly, humans were used to being afraid and fighting anyway. Every human soldier had ancestors who had faced larger, stronger enemies and found ways to win. It was in their DNA. We need to think about this war differently, Admiral Lee said as the meeting neared its end. The aliens expect us to build big fleets and fight huge battles. Instead, we'll hit them where they don't expect it. We'll target their supply lines, their communication networks, their manufacturing centers. Guerrilla warfare, nodded General An. Make them afraid to leave their own systems. Make every victory cost them more than they can afford to lose. Dr. Hana had been quiet for most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. There's one more thing we need to consider. The aliens have never fought an enemy that fights back the way humans do. When they attack prey species, those species either submit or die quickly. They don't know what to do with an enemy that keeps getting back up. Over the following months, Earth transformed itself into a fortress. Civilian factories were converted to produce military equipment. Asteroid mining operations were secretly turned into weapons platforms. Merchant ships were modified to carry hidden weapons. The changes were not obvious to outside observers. Earth still looked like a peaceful world focused on trade and science. But underneath the surface, humanity was preparing for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Kang Min-young took command of Earth's first stealth ship, the Ghost of Jeju. It was built using human innovations in material science that the aliens had dismissed as primitive chemistry. The ship could become nearly invisible to alien sensors. Pilot Oh Yoonji trained with the new Valkyrie fighter craft. These ships were designed to take advantage of human pilots' ability to withstand high-gravity forces. They could turn and accelerate in ways that would kill most alien pilots. All across Earth, similar preparations were taking place. Humans were doing what they had always done when faced with a superior enemy. They were adapting, innovating, and preparing to fight dirty. The aliens thought they knew what would happen when Operation Cleansing began. They expected to find a frightened world begging for mercy. They planned to make an example of Earth that would keep other species in line for centuries. What they didn't know was that humanity had spent its entire evolutionary history as persistence predators. Humans were the species that chased mammoths across continents until the giants collapsed from exhaustion. They were the species that turned wolves into dogs, rivers into highways, and deserts into gardens. And now, for the first time in galactic history, the prey had declared war on the predators. The aliens would soon learn the difference. Fleet Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the human solar system grow larger on the main screen. Behind him, 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships moved in perfect formation. It was the largest military force ever assembled by the Galactic Council. Any response from the human world? He asked his communications officer. Nothing, sir. No military transmissions. No calls for help. No surrender messages. Their planet appears to be completely undefended. Kethmore was not surprised. Intelligence reports had said that Earth had only a few dozen spacecraft, and most of those were cargo ships. The humans had no real military fleet. They had no orbital defense platforms. They probably thought they could hide on their planet and hope the Council would forget about them. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "we're detecting some activity in the asteroid belt, but it appears to be normal mining operations. No weapons signatures." "Of course," Kethmore said with satisfaction. "The humans are probably still trying to dig metals out of rocks while we prepare to cleanse their system." They truly are a primitive species. The Hegemony Admiral had fought in 12 campaigns over his long career. Every time it had been the same. The enemy would see the size of his fleet and immediately surrender. Sometimes they would try to negotiate. Sometimes they would just run away. But they always gave up when they realized they could not win. He expected the humans to do the same. The fleet moved deeper into the solar system. They passed the outer planets without incident. The few human spacecraft they detected were tiny cargo ships that quickly fled when they saw the alien fleet. Everything was going according to plan. "Admiral," called the tactical officer, "we're approaching Mars orbit." Still no sign of any organized defense. Kethmore nodded. "Prepare the cleansing bombardment. We'll start with their military facilities, then move on to their major cities. The Council wants this to be a lesson that other species will remember." But as the fleet reached Mars orbit, something strange happened. The mining platforms in the asteroid belt suddenly changed. What had looked like simple metal extraction equipment began to move and rotate. Large objects that had appeared to be storage containers opened up to reveal massive weapons. Commander Bae Hyunsik sat in the command center of Defense Platform Alpha. Hidden deep inside the asteroid series, for months, he had watched alien scout ships observe the mining operations in the belt. They had seen exactly what they expected to see. Humans digging in rocks like primitive cave dwellers. They had not seen the truth. The asteroid belt was not a mining operation. It was the largest fortress ever built by humanity. "All stations, this is Hammer Control." Bae spoke into his communicator. "Operation Hammerfall is now active. You are free to engage enemy targets." Across the asteroid belt, dozens of hidden weapons platforms revealed themselves. Railguns that had been disguised as mining equipment swiveled toward the alien fleet. Missile launchers that had looked like storage silos opened their doors. Fighter bays that had been hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids disgorged swarms of human combat craft. The first salvo caught the alien fleet completely by surprise. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails, punched through alien energy shields like they were made of paper. The shields had been designed to stop energy weapons, not chunks of dense metal moving at near-light speed. 3 alien ships simply disappeared in the first seconds of the battle. Their energy shields tried to deflect the railgun projectiles, failed completely, and allowed the metal slugs to tear through their hulls like tissue paper. "What was that?" Fleet Admiral Kethmore demanded as his ship shook from nearby explosions. "Where did those weapons come from?" "Sir, the mining platforms in the asteroid belt are actually military installations. They're firing some kind of kinetic projectiles at us." Kethmore could not believe what he was hearing. "Kinetic weapons? They're throwing rocks at us?" "Not rocks, sir. Refined metal projectiles moving at enormous speeds. Our shields can't stop them." The alien fleet tried to return fire, but their energy weapons had limited range and were designed for fighting other energy weapons. The human railguns could hit targets from much farther away, and their metal projectiles could not be deflected or absorbed. Captain Yoon Ji-soo launched from the hidden fighter bay inside the asteroid Vesta. Her ship, the Ueds Incheon, was not graceful like the alien vessels. It was a converted cargo hauler, rough and angular with heavy armor plating and powerful engines. "All ships, this is Incheon Actual," she transmitted to the human fleet. "Remember your training. Hit hard, move fast, and don't give them time to think." The human fleet attacked from multiple directions at once. Their ships were smaller than the alien vessels, but they were faster and more maneuverable. More importantly, they were designed by humans who understood that space combat was about physics, not elegance. The aliens tried to form defensive formations, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to follow the accepted rules of galactic warfare. Human ships would accelerate toward alien vessels, fire all their weapons at close range, then use their superior speed to escape before the aliens could respond. Pilot Oh Yoon-ji flew her Valkyrie fighter through the alien formation like a needle through cloth. The aliens could not understand how she could maneuver so aggressively without dying. What they didn't know was that human pilots could survive acceleration forces that would kill most alien species. "This is Valkyrie 7, she reported over the radio as she destroyed her third enemy fighter. "These alien pilots can't handle high-G maneuvers. I can outturn anything they have." The battle lasted 4 hours. By the end, 127 alien ships had been destroyed. The remaining 73 were damaged and fleeing toward the edge of the solar system. They left behind debris fields and distress beacons, but no survivors who could explain what had happened. Human losses were minimal. 3 ships destroyed, 47 casualties total. It was the most lopsided military victory in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Kethmore sat in his damaged command chair and tried to understand what had gone wrong. His fleet had been larger, more advanced, and better equipped than anything the humans possessed. How had they lost so badly? "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." On the main screen, the face of Admiral Lee Jiho appeared. He was an older human with gray hair and calm eyes. When he spoke, his voice was steady and controlled. "To the survivors of the Galactic Council fleet," he said, "you came here expecting to find victims. You found warriors instead. You declared war on humanity thinking we would be easy to defeat. You were wrong." The alien bridge crew listened in stunned silence. "Your fleet attacked our home," Admiral Lee continued. "You intended to kill billions of innocent people to send a message to the galaxy. That message has been received, but not in the way you intended." The human admiral leaned forward slightly, and his expression became harder. "You wanted war. You have it. But this will not be the kind of war you expect. We will not sit on our world waiting for you to attack us again. We will bring this fight to you. We will show the galaxy that the Council can be beaten, and we will free every species that you have oppressed." The transmission ended, leaving the alien bridge in silence. Kethmore realized that everything the Council thought it knew about humans was wrong. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were not afraid. They were something much more dangerous than that. They were angry. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than the surviving ships could carry it. For the first time in galactic history, a Council fleet had been destroyed by a single primitive world. The impossible had happened. On thousands of worlds, alien civilians looked up at the stars and wondered if the humans were coming for them next. On the rebel worlds, resistance fighters began to believe that the Council could actually be beaten, and on Earth, humanity prepared for the long war that was about to begin. They had won the first battle. But they knew it was only the beginning. High Arbiter Quendara stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, her silver bark-like skin glowing with anger. The great chamber that had once been filled with confident voices was now quiet and tense. "The human threat is greater than we calculated," she announced to the assembled representatives. "They have destroyed a full Council fleet using primitive weapons that our defensive systems could not handle." Chancellor Vextai shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The leader of the Dominion Empire had lost over 30 ships in the failed attack on Earth. "How is this possible?" "Our intelligence said they had no real military capability." "Our intelligence was wrong," Quendara replied coldly. "The humans were preparing for war while pretending to seek peace. They have turned their entire solar system into a fortress. But this is only the beginning of our problems." A new voice spoke from the chamber floor. "High Arbiter, we have reports of human ships operating far beyond their solar system. They appear to be conducting raids on our supply lines." Quendara's glowing eyes dimmed. This was the news she had been dreading. "Explain." Admiral Song Minseo commanded the human fleet from the bridge of her flagship, the Soul Avenger. Around her, 30 human ships moved through space in perfect formation. They were deep in Council territory, thousands of light years from Earth. "Target acquired," reported her tactical officer. "Council supply convoy, 12 cargo ships with 4 escorts." "Any civilians aboard the cargo ships?" Song asked. "Negative, Admiral. All Council military supplies. Food, weapons, and fuel bound for Dominion forward bases." Song nodded. "All ships attack formation. Remember, we're not here to hold territory. Hit fast, take what we need, and get out before their reinforcements arrive." The human ships struck like lightning. They appeared out of nowhere, destroyed the escort vessels in minutes, and disabled the cargo ships without destroying them. Human boarding teams quickly transferred the most valuable supplies to their own ships. The entire raid took less than an hour. By the time Council reinforcements arrived, the human fleet was gone, leaving behind empty cargo ships and confused survivors. This scene was repeated across the galaxy. Human strike forces appeared without warning, hit their targets, and vanished before the Council could respond. They targeted supply lines, communication relays, and manufacturing centers. They avoided civilian targets but showed no mercy to military installations. Captain Kang Min-young piloted her stealth ship, the Ghost of Jeju, through the outer defenses of a Council military base. Her ship was invisible to alien sensors, thanks to human innovations in materials science that the aliens had dismissed as primitive chemistry. "This is Ghost of Jeju," she whispered into her communicator. "I'm inside their perimeter." Beginning intelligence gathering. The Ghost of Jeju was not built for fighting. It was built for spying and sabotage. Kang's mission was to plant listening devices in the Council's communication networks and steal their military codes. She had been doing this for 6 months now, moving from system to system like an invisible phantom. The Council knew that their communications were being intercepted, but they could not find the source. Their sensors simply could not detect human stealth technology. But the physical warfare was only half of humanity's strategy. The other half was psychological. Dr. Shin Ho-sung sat in his office on Earth, studying reports from the front lines. As humanity's chief military psychologist, his job was to understand how the war was affecting alien minds. "The Council species are showing signs of psychological breakdown," he reported to Admiral Lee during their weekly briefing. "They evolved from prey animals, so their natural response to being hunted is to panic and flee. But they can't flee because they're supposed to be the hunters." "What does that mean for our strategy?" Admiral Lee asked. "It means we're winning a war they can't fight," Shin replied. "Every time we attack and disappear, we reinforce their prey instincts. They're becoming afraid to leave their home systems. Some species are already demanding protection from the Council military." The psychological warfare was helped by intelligence officer Nam Soo-jin's network of rebel contacts. Across the galaxy, resistance movements were growing stronger. They had seen that the mighty Council could be beaten, and they wanted to join the fight. On the world of Vindara, a species of peaceful plant-like beings had endured Council rule for centuries. They had been forced to provide food for the Council military while their own people starved. But now, inspired by human victories, they were ready to fight back. "The humans have shown us that the Council can be defeated," declared Vindari resistance leader Gelthara during a secret meeting. "They fight with honor but without mercy. They protect the innocent but destroy the oppressors. This is the way we must fight too." The Vindari resistance, trained by human advisors, launched coordinated attacks across their homeworld. They captured government buildings, liberated food stores, and declared their independence from the Council. Within weeks, other species began similar revolts. The free colonies of the Outer Rim were next. These were human-settled worlds that had been forced to accept Council authority. Now they declared themselves independent and requested protection from Earth's fleet. Each victory, no matter how small, sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The Council's reputation for invincibility was crumbling, but the Council was not giving up without a fight. Emergency Chancellor Mortith, who had replaced the discredited Quendara, mobilized every available ship for a massive counterattack. "The humans cannot be everywhere at once," he declared to his military commanders. "We will force them to defend fixed positions. We will attack their rebel allies and make the humans choose between saving their friends or protecting themselves." The plan made sense in theory, but it failed to account for the fact that humans did not think like other species. When Council fleets moved to attack the rebel worlds, they found human ships waiting for them. But these were not the hit-and-run raids the aliens had grown to fear. These were prepared defensive battles fought on ground that humans had chosen. The Battle of Vindara lasted 3 days. A Council fleet of 80 ships attacked the rebel world, expecting to crush the uprising quickly. Instead, they found a combined force of human and Vindari ships defending the planet. The aliens had superior numbers and technology, but the defenders had something more important. They were fighting for their freedom. Human tactics and Vindari knowledge of their own system created a combination that the Council could not overcome. Captain Yunjisu led a squadron of converted merchant ships in a desperate charge against the Council flagship. Her ship, the Busan Thunder, was held together with spare parts and determination. But she and her crew fought with the fury of people protecting their home. All ships follow me in, she transmitted, as her squadron dove toward the massive alien vessel. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to win. The human ships swarmed around the Council flagship like angry insects. They were individually weaker, but they attacked from all directions at once. The alien ship's weapons could not target all of them simultaneously. The Council fleet retreated after losing 30 ships. Vindara remained free. Similar battles were fought across the galaxy. On some worlds, the rebels won. On others, the Council managed to crush the uprisings. But every battle cost the Council more than they could afford to lose. More importantly, every battle proved that humans would fight for their allies. The galaxy began to understand that Earth was not trying to conquer anyone. They were trying to free everyone. After 18 months of war, the situation had completely reversed. The Council, which had started the conflict expecting an easy victory, was now fighting desperately to maintain control. Their fleets were scattered. Their supply lines were constantly under attack, and their member species were demanding an end to the war. But humanity was just getting started. They had proven that the Council could be beaten in battle. Now they were going to prove that it could be completely destroyed. The final phase of the war was about to begin. Emergency Chancellor Mordeth sat alone in his private chambers on Nexus Prime, staring at reports that told the same story over and over. The Galactic Council was losing the war. 3 years had passed since the failed attack on Earth, and the situation grew worse every day. 17 member species had declared independence from the Council. 43 worlds were in open revolt. Human fleets operated freely throughout Council space, striking wherever they chose. The once mighty galactic government was falling apart. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry to his chambers. "Come in," Morteth said wearily. His aide, a nervous creature from the Delian system, entered carrying a datapad. "Sir, we have received a communication from the human government. They are offering terms for ending the war." Morteth looked up with hope in his eyes. "Finally. What are their demands? Tribute? Territory? Limited trade agreements?" The aide's expression grew even more nervous. "Sir, they demand the complete dissolution of the Galactic Council and free elections on all member worlds." The Chancellor stared at his aide in disbelief. "That's not a peace offer. That's a demand for surrender." "Yes, sir. That appears to be correct." Mordeth closed his eyes and tried to think. How had it come to this? The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had maintained peace and order across millions of worlds. How could one primitive species destroy everything they had built? But even as he asked himself the question, he knew the answer. The Council had maintained order through fear and oppression. They had kept peace by crushing anyone who opposed them. The humans had shown the galaxy that there was another way. On Earth, President Im Soo-young stood before the United Earth Assembly, preparing to address not just her own people, but the entire galaxy. The message would be broadcast on frequencies that every intelligent species could receive. "People of Earth, and beings across the galaxy," she began. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council rejected humanity's request to join the galactic community. They declared us a threat that had to be contained or destroyed. Today I stand before you to announce that their corrupt government has finally fallen. The assembly chamber erupted in cheers, but President Im raised her hand for silence. But this victory belongs not just to humanity. It belongs to every species that fought for freedom. The Vindari, who refused to let their people starve while feeding their oppressors. The free colonies, who chose independence over safety. The countless rebel groups who risked everything to break the chains of tyranny. She paused and looked directly into the camera. "The war is over, but our work is just beginning. We did not fight to replace one galactic empire with another. We fought to give every species the right to choose their own destiny." The final battle of the war had not been a massive fleet engagement or a desperate siege. It had been a small, precise operation that struck at the heart of the Council's power. General An Taeyong led a strike team of 50 human soldiers and alien rebels through the corridors of Nexus Prime. Their mission was simple: capture the Council leadership and end the war once and for all. The aliens had expected humanity to attack the station with overwhelming force, just as they would have done. Instead, humans had used stealth and intelligence to infiltrate the most secure facility in the galaxy. Commander Lim Ji-won of the Special Operations Division moved like a shadow through the station's security systems. She had studied alien psychology for years, and she knew that prey species like the council leaders would retreat to the most protected area when threatened. Target located, she whispered into her communicator. Emergency bunker, level 47. All council leadership is in one location. The assault team moved quickly and quietly. They encountered minimal resistance because the council had never imagined that anyone would be bold enough to attack their headquarters directly. By the time the station's security forces realized what was happening, it was too late. Emergency Chancellor Morteth was taken into custody without firing a shot. He surrendered immediately when human soldiers entered his bunker. Like all prey species, his instinct when cornered was to submit rather than fight. The war that had begun with humanity's rejection at the council chamber ended in that same chamber. But this time it was the council leaders who stood in the center while others decided their fate. Commander Park Min-ho, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the new Galactic Federation, looked around the chamber with satisfaction. The same room where humanity had been dismissed as primitive now hosted the trial of the former council leadership. You stand accused of crimes against the free peoples of the galaxy, he announced to the assembled former leaders. Oppression, exploitation, and attempted genocide. How do you plead? One by one, the former council members pleaded for mercy. They claimed they had only been trying to maintain order. They said they had acted in the best interests of galactic civilization, but their words fell on deaf ears. The evidence against them was overwhelming, and the galaxy had already moved on. The new Galactic Federation was everything the old council had not been. It was democratic, with each member species having an equal voice regardless of their size or technology level. It was voluntary, with species free to leave if they chose. Most importantly, it was protected by a military force that answered to all member species, not just a privileged few. Dr. Kim Hana, now serving as the Federation's first Secretary of Cultural Affairs, worked to heal the wounds left by centuries of council rule. Species that had been enemies for generations learned to work together. Technologies that had been hoarded by the powerful were shared freely. The former council species were not punished beyond the removal of their leaders. They were given the same chance as everyone else to build better societies. Some embraced the opportunity. Others struggled to adapt to a world where they could not simply take what they wanted from weaker species. Admiral Lee Ji-ho, now commanding the Federation Defense Force, established new principles for galactic military operations. The Federation would protect its members, but it would not conquer or oppress. It would defend the innocent, but it would not impose its will on others. Captain Yoon Ji-soo, promoted to admiral, led the integration of former rebel forces into the new Federation military. Humans worked alongside Vindari, former free colonists, and even reformed council species. They learned from each other and became stronger together. The integration was not always easy. Different species had different ideas about tactics, discipline, and honor. But slowly they learned to work as a team. Young aliens of various species trained alongside human instructors at the new Federation Military Academy on Luna. They learned not just human tactics, but human values, that sometimes the right thing to do is to stand up and fight, even when the odds seem impossible. Pilot Oh Yoon-ji, now a flight instructor, watched her mixed-species squadron practice combat maneuvers. Remember, she told them over the radio, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Her students came from a dozen different worlds. Some were former council loyalists whose parents had fought against humanity. Others were children of rebels who had died fighting for freedom. But in the cockpit, they were all the same, young people learning to protect others. 5 years after the war's end, Ambassador Park Min-ho stood once again in the great chamber of Nexus Prime. But now it was called Federation Hall, and the atmosphere was completely different. Representatives from over 100 species worked together to solve problems and build a better future. The chamber buzzed with conversation in dozens of languages. Beings who had once feared each other now debated policy and shared jokes. Children of various species played together in the viewing galleries while their parents conducted the business of galactic government. It was not perfect. Democracy never was. There were still arguments, conflicts, and misunderstandings. Some species left the Federation and rejoined later. Others chose to remain independent while maintaining friendly relations, but it was better than what had come before. Instead of a galaxy ruled by fear, there was a galaxy governed by choice. Instead of the strong dominating the weak, There were laws that protected everyone equally. As Minho watched the daily business of the Federation, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple request. Humanity wanted to join the galactic community. The Council had said no, not just to membership but to humanity's very existence. That rejection had been their final mistake. They had declared war on the one species in the galaxy that understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than themselves. They had threatened the people who had spent their entire evolutionary history turning impossible challenges into opportunities. The irony was perfect. The Council's vote against Earth had been intended to preserve their version of galactic stability. Instead, it had created the very war that destroyed their corrupt system and freed billions of beings across the galaxy. Outside the great windows of Federation Hall, ships from dozens of worlds came and went in peaceful traffic. Human vessels worked alongside former enemies to explore new systems, establish trade routes, and respond to emergencies. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was free, and sometimes Minho reflected that was enough.